Wear your heart on your sleeve. Welcome back, everyone. This is Hoy's FM, and I am your favorite resident DJ, Bongani Mina. Today, we're going to do something different. We are going to begin to have the national dialogue and talk about this country in a way that doesn't cost 700 million, doesn't speak to the navel gazing of people who don't understand the situation on the ground, telling us about our experience and the country that we live in and experience every day. And as I've been reflecting on some of the things that are happening in the world, some of the things that are happening in South Africa in particular, I've been concerned, and this is my attempt at saying we can't have a national dialogue if we're not coming from the same point of departure. And no one has really worked on making sure that we do have some kind of common ground on which to base a national dialogue on. This is my attempt out into the public world. So, the first thing is for us to define ourselves, who is included and who is excluded. And therefore, I came up with what I'm calling the individual based identity within the South African flag, trying to point out how we are all the same. Every person who is South African, lives in South Africa, is from South Africa, or identifies as South African is a mixture of the rainbow colors. This is part of how we see ourselves, and we all have the 6 elements within us. This is not about race. This is not about class. This is not about your background and heritage, the language you speak. We, as South Africans, have chosen the rainbow colors and the rainbow flag because we are all united in our diversity. We are one race, the human race. So please have that preamble as we get into this. The 6 colors of our flag do not represent 6 races. We are all human, and these 6 colors I'm representing parts of ourselves and parts of the things that we have to interact with as people. And there's a specific reason for the order, but bear with me. Hopefully, it'll make sense when we are done. The first thing that we need to be looking at is the first color of the flag, the black. So, this is your darkness. This is your black hole. This is the you before the Big Bang. This is you as a ball of desire and intertwined potential. You as the unique print of the animating forces that cause action, that initiate movement. We all come from this place of lack, this place of held back potential. We are our subconscious and we are our unconscious. And these things are expressing themselves through multiple filters. This layer is universal. Yes, I'm saying we are all good people. We all have desires. We are all not coming from an evil place. This is just reflective of our inner hunger. It craves. And what does it crave? More. It craves more life, more experience. It craves and can never be satisfied. That's why it's a black hole. That's why it's the darkness, the lack. No judgment. This is in all of us. And if we can't acknowledge that, then these are the reasons why we can't align and move forward as a people. This is just one color. Moving on to the next, we have gold. And like I say all the time, we all have gold in our soul. So where there is a black hole, in us, um, that feeds our addictions, that is our hunger manifest, um, that is the birthplace of every desire. So too, we have gold, which is our inner fullness, our inner goodness. And this is the light that is within, the light that we shine. This is the value that we have and hold in all of us. That gold is part of you too. It is as old as the black, it is as old as the darkness. It's its twin and its counter force. And so we all have to recognize these two things. The black and the gold are twin dragons inside every soul. This applies particularly because we're having a South African conversation, but this is a human conversation as well. Every single person has darkness and light within them. Every single person has desire and the gold that wants to manifest and express itself. We all have these things. Now, these are the parts that are on the inside. They are deep inside. And so we try to be careful. We try not to let these things show. But the freaks come out at night. There are moments where it sneaks out. Similarly, there are moments where we shine, where our rays of light escape and they stun the world around us into silence. We have our tantrums and we have our moments of brilliance, all of us. No matter who you are, this applies to you. See the black and see the gold as universal. Just like how we all have two parents, just like how we all live and we all die, just like how we all have inner wisdom and yet we are all born ignorant. It is all true, all at the same time. Then we get into our next color, the green. Now, the green is what's unique to you. The green is fertile ground. It's everything that you've absorbed. And you absorb so much, you absorb a lot. And those things that you absorb, you will make manifest. Human beings are 3D printers. We take intangible ideas and we act them out into the real world. We are shaped by our experience. We process every stimulus. What we have absorbed all our lives is more unique than a fingerprint. No two humans have the same experience, not even twins. Because if they are both crying, one is picked up first. One goes with mom while the other goes with dad. There is no such thing as the same experience. The journey towards maturation for all of us is us arranging our experiences and integrating them. They are varied, but we integrate them into a coherent life story that makes us us. And that needs to make sense to us. That is the green. Then we have the white, which is on either side of the green. And the white is our face. This is our personality. These are the parts that we let out and we show to the world. See, the green is in touch with our inner self, the two dragons we spoke of, and it feeds and filters our experience to and from ourselves to ourselves. That's what the green does, taking what's on the inside and incorporating it into us. And then the white does the same job, but now filtering the green of ourselves to the outside world, to what the world gets to see, what the world gets to know. These are the behaviors, these are the habits, the parts of ourselves we present, whether we are meant to or not, whether we mean to or not, whether we want to or not. Like we mentioned earlier, sometimes things leak. So observe a person long enough and you can guess at who they are in terms of their black, their green, and their gold, because the filter is this combination. But we are guessing at the green, black, and gold. What we see is the face, that white, that combination of both what is conscious and unconscious about that person. It's all combined and presented out into the real world, right? So the green and the white, that is who you are and how you are known. We guess at people's green, like I said, based on what we see through the white and how the white interacts. Some people have tight and rigid patterns, others are loose and fluid. We call these things moods, temperament, habits, behaviors. Together they form the person, what we know in the real world. So we can't necessarily access the black and the gold of people. We can't necessarily access the green of people, but we see from the white that we get their intentions, where they are coming from, what their traumas are, what their hidden gifts and talents are. We see those things through the filter. We can observe a person, and as we've said, right, the person's patterns become clear with time. The more time we spend with people, the more we get to know their inner world, in as much as we know only what we see on the outside objectively. Then your face, that's the end of you, basically, right? And so then we have the red and blue, which are on the outside. Now, I've divided the red and blue into the red being, these are the relationships, how we react to people around us, how we react to the world. We are triggered, and that then goes inside of us and has an influence on who we are and how we then show up again. So our face changes. And that's why there's that face between the green and the red. This adapts, it grows, or it shrinks. It is fed with more healthy interactions. It is fed with good vibes and energies, emotions that affirm, or it is starved and we wilt. Um, this all depends on our surroundings and it depends on how we cope with it. Everyone's emotional world is different. And also, how we perceive ourselves and our world is deeply personal. And so that's the red. Then we have the blue. And the blue, these are the invisible. So, in as much as the relationships might be more clear and tangible, when we are now reacting to constructs and to systems, to history, these things are things we cannot touch. These are constructs, these are systems. And the blue is how those systems are arranged around us. And the white that interfaces with that is how we react to them. We are triggered too by these things, and they influence us from the outside world. And our face changes depending on this. It either grows or shrinks. It is either helped or hindered. It gets injured or is empowered, depending on our lived experience, how we cope with these invisible things, and we have to build our own mental frameworks. And we are shaped by what we know. Everyone's mental world is different. We also perceive it very, very differently. There's so much variety, it varies so widely. And so the outside world is made up of people and things. How we relate to people is largely emotional and based on our feelings and experiences. Then there are the things, and how we interact with those things is different um, because we treat them based on what we know about them, based on the mental models and our own mental scaffolding, the way that we've arranged the paradigms um, in terms of how we think and how we have built our worldview. So our face is therefore divided on the one side and on the other side, which kind of represent this idea of the left brain and the right brain. We have a face for each, and our personality is a mix of both the red and the blue, and what we know, how we feel, these make up our experience. So the red, the white, and the blue together is our lived experience, while the black, green, and gold is more of our inner intentions, our inner orientation, and the base of who we are. So there were 6 colors, and then there is number 7, the flag. We are all number 7. We all have the 6 within us, and the flag is who we are, all of us. You can choose to face it or deny it. This is my attempt at adding to the national dialogue, a framework for dissecting how everyone else in South Africa sees the world. I will now, in my National Dialogue Reacts, which is a series where I will use this framework to look at what people say who are in the public eye, and I will try to dissect which color inside of them is speaking and leading the way, which face are we seeing, and what are they saying, and how does that reflect what's happening with the 6 colors and the 6 dimensions. So they, as a person, are another flag, and we then have to look at the proportions of the different colors within them. Are they more speaking from the rational in terms of understanding the invisible ordered systems? Is their face more emotional and dancing to the tune of the people and their interactions? Are they balanced in their inner realm? And all of these things we're going to be looking at to see if what people say is unique or if they're just bouncing back the things that they perceive from their outside world. The difference between you raising your kids and them raising themselves is how willing you are to explain your logic, how you came to those conclusions and decisions. If your logic is flawed, your children will rebel. If it's sound, then they will incorporate it and remix it into their lives because it's useful in their world in the present time. And so what you taught them was timeless. And that's how you live on in the real world. Wear your heart on your sleeve. And we are getting straight into it. I probably made it seem like we're not going to start immediately, that this series doesn't begin now. I apologize for that, but I'm going to react to Dan Corder now.
Controversial hot take, South Africans don't know South Africa. South Africans don't even, by and large, know enough about recent and old South African history to meaningfully understand what is going on in South Africa today. That is not our fault. I include myself in this. But South Africa is a country so deeply defined by its history, its recent history and its older histories, but even in the last 200 years is so impactful and still affects so much of what South Africa is and what happens here. And I constantly worry that, myself included, but the vast majority, I'm going to say 99% of South Africans, we don't know enough about things that matter and have consequences for our lives. I was on Trevor Noah's podcast a month or two ago, and we were talking about how so many South Africans don't even know what the TRC is, in spite of the fact that that commission and the decisions around that commission have impacted all of us and what modern South Africa is.
So who remembers the concept that we do need this methodology? We do need to review what we are as people, where the ideas that we think we know come from, and to really understand South Africa is for us to be able to grapple with our history and our past. So in our model, that would speak more directly to the concepts in terms of what South Africa is, what South Africa's history is, which is not tangible now, but was tangible in the past. And so Dan is helping us zoom into this blue area of the concepts and the history. Let's enjoy.
So today's episode is going to be a little different. We're going to talk about some of the things that we are personally very saddened and outraged that more South Africans don't know more about. And we're not blaming South Africans for not knowing those things. What we are upset about is the fact that our history syllabus, our education system, and general leaders in South African life have not done a good enough job of making sure we South Africans know what we need to know to understand our history so that we can probably understand the country that we're living in today. And so that is what today's show is going to be about them. If we as a country and people living out are going to properly work through national dialogue, but it's not costing you 700 million to watch this episode.
I promise I came to that joke independently.
Let's talk about how South Africans don't know South Africa. We don't know enough about South Africa. And I'm talking about the facts of what South Africa is like in the modern day. We did that episode last week, I think it was Friday, about the true state of immigration in this country. Both legal and illegal is an easy example. But what we're going to focus on is some parts of our history that, even if they're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 years old, really still matter, because they still affect the fundamental South Africa that exists, that we live in, that we try to thrive in, survive in, and move through. Let's just start with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because this is where this thought really blossomed for me on Trevor Noah's pod and in the video that I put on social media earlier this week. So many South Africans have no idea about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, particularly under the age of 25, but even older South Africans. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission fundamentally designed and manifested the new South Africa after apartheid. After the election and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was the next most consequential thing for what made modern South Africa. Spark Notes, again, if you're under 25, you don't even know what that means. If you're over 35, Cliff Notes. If you're under 25, ChatGPT summary, but actually real facts, and you don't have to check them. But the Spark Notes summary is that at the end of apartheid, there was this real crisis in that many millions, the vast majority of South Africans did not know the full extent of what happened during apartheid, what the apartheid government did, the horrors and atrocities that the apartheid government committed. And in the early 90s, at the end of apartheid, the apartheid government destroyed masses and masses of documents that had recorded the atrocities that the apartheid government had committed upon mainly people of color in South Africa. They destroyed the evidence. And of course, it feels obvious to point out, but in that era, before everyone had a phone and it was easy to get data and you could shoot video and pictures on your phone and you could WhatsApp and text and it wasn't just landline, in that era, once something had happened, if the only evidence of that horror atrocity happening was a document and that document was destroyed, that history was gone, except in the minds of people who either suffered those atrocities or committed those atrocities.
We have to admit our ignorance. Just because there is no evidence does not mean that those things are not having an impact on people today. And we have the same thing happening in today's society. What is being erased is the fast-paced nature of the news, the fast-paced nature of the amount of distraction that we have on these devices, and the media that is constantly pushing different narratives. This then creates for us still ignorance, because we don't really know what's going on. We don't really know why the election counting machines switched off during the election. We don't really know why this GNU is called a GNU, and yet it really is just a coalition. We don't know, and we don't have time to slow things down and really analyze, and that's what the issues are.
But how would you get the people who committed those atrocities to come forward and tell you what they did? They wouldn't want to do that. And there was this bind, because at the end of, or the beginning of the new South Africa, there was a justified desire to hold people who committed atrocities during apartheid to account and make them face accountability, consequences, and justice. But if we didn't know the full scale of the horrors that were committed during apartheid, how could we even start to come to terms with and get closure over what happened? There were families, millions and millions of people in South Africa who did not know what had happened to their loved ones. Those loved ones had just disappeared one day and never came back. Did not know the full horrors that had been committed on people in their communities. And the Truth and Reconciliation, led by Desmond Tutu, the Archbishop at the time, was a project to say the most important thing that we can achieve is to find out what happened so we can truly understand what the apartheid state did to South Africa and South Africans. And from that, we can get a degree of closure, but we could also learn what happened and use that information to properly try to create policies to redress those wrongs, those evils, those injustices. His argument and their argument was, if we don't know what happened, then we won't be able to correct it. We won't be able to effectively fix some of those problems. And his point was, even if that means, because here's the rub, right? Because you're still wondering, if you don't know about the TRC, how are they going to convince people who commit atrocities to come forward? Well, the TRC strategy was, if someone comes forward and admits that they committed a horror, and the commission gauged that that person had spoken honestly, worked with the commission to provide as much information as they had, and showed genuine remorse, contrition, like a genuine expression of regret that they wish they had not done those things and they recognized they were wrong, then those people would be given amnesty from those crimes. They would never be persecuted, charged, pursued by a court of law or justice system about those crimes. Desmond Tutu and the TRC supporters argued granting that amnesty was justified in two ways. One, if those people never came forward and told us what they did, very few of them would be prosecuted anyway, so they would not face justice in a court of law anyway. And so getting them to come and tell us was better than them just never telling us and still not being prosecuted. But two, the value was that we would find out and we would know the full extent of the horrors that happened and understand how apartheid works to destroy so many millions of people's lives. Many people disagreed with the TRC, and many people believed that they should not have done that and it was wrong. And the TRC did not effectively allow Black South Africans and South Africans of color to express their outrage and get justice through whatever prosecutions could have been possible with the public information that was had at the time to at least put some people behind bars. But the South African government of Nelson Mandela got behind the commission, and the commission took place. And huge amounts of information was gathered. Many people did come forward and testify about the horrors that they committed, or at least that they were aware of, and that provided us evidence to understand what apartheid had really done. And many people then got amnesty, many people showed contrition. Some families, some relatives of those victims of apartheid atrocities did feel a sense of closure and were happy that the TRC had done what it had done. But some families, famously Steve Biko's family, were not happy about the TRC and still tried to pursue court justice mechanisms against the perpetrators who had committed atrocities against their loved ones or upon their loved ones. And the TRC was this wild deal, this deal that was struck where South Africa's government decided that we would make this deal and forgive and try to rebuild South Africa and try to make people come together and feel some sense of closure and reckoning and understanding and hopefully heal some wounds to a degree between different race groups. That was the deal that they struck. And that deal is incredibly consequential to what South Africa has become.
And part of that deal was to not forget. We are not supposed to forget, and yet here we are 30 years later, people are talking about, oh, get over it. It was 30 years ago. Get over it. The people that did those things are dead now. All of these things were documented. The intention was very clear to ensure that there is proper accountability for what was done, for people to understand that the project of the rainbow is firstly acknowledging the wrongs of the past so that we can move forward. And yet, there are parts of our society today that pretend that there are no wrongs of the past and that everything is equal.
Come, because the alternatives would have been mass trials to try and convict some people with what limited evidence one could get one's hands of, and that would have created a different South Africa. It would have created a different vibe. It would have created a different sense of how to rebuild the country. It would have exacerbated divisions, and the TRC probably also exacerbated some divisions because we found out more about what apartheid did to people and what people in the apartheid state did to people. It's important not to talk about apartheid as this other thing. People did apartheid.
Shout out to Dan Corder there. Really good catch, because not only is talking about apartheid a conceptual thing in the blue realm, but also it is relational because there were power dynamics between the peoples. There was a victim, but there was also a perpetrator, and both of these peoples in this red area. It's important for us to realize that these are the relations that continue into the modern South Africa because it wasn't fully unearthed, it wasn't fully unpacked, and we've allowed ourselves to forget. We've allowed ourselves to be distracted by the Springboks. We've allowed ourselves to be distracted by becoming world champions. We've allowed ourselves to be distracted by Banyana Banyana and all these other things that seek to bring about some kind of unity, and yet we are not a truly united people because we haven't had a united experience of what this place is and the history that we have gone through. We haven't faced fully the people that did those things and their orientation in how they look at the world and what the world now is meant to be, not what it was back then, but they still want to continue in a new guise under new terms and conditions to still apply property relations of the past.
But the TRC did something that created modern South African life. Another alternative at the end of apartheid could have been to take land back from white people. It could have been to mass redistribute wealth, like kinds of economic justice ideas. And there was a component of economic justice within the TRC, the idea being that some families, relations of victims deserved and would get financial compensation for what had been discovered, had been done to their loved ones and their families during apartheid. So it was built in. But the TRC tried to do this unity, forgive, don't forget, remember better, learn more unity thing that really shaped what modern South Africa then became. That allowed for things like the Rainbow Nation. That allowed for things like the idea of this miracle state and this miracle people who were able to forgive and overcome. And we are still living in the consequences of that time because more and more now there are more and more South Africans who go, but the TRC didn't do enough. And because we did the TRC, we did not pursue other means of more effective justice that would have more radically changed the country to help more black South Africans who are still impoverished and disenfranchised and disempowered. Not literally disenfranchised, obviously everyone has the vote, but meaningfully in normal life, stripped of power. So we have to know about the TRC, people. If we don't know about the TRC, we can't engage in modern South African life. And the vast majority of South Africans don't know about the TRC. I'm sure you can hear the heartburn in my voice about this. And there are currently massive scandals, or they should be massive, around the TRC. A lot of people who were not granted amnesty were supposed to then face charges and investigations from the National Prosecuting Authority, apartheid perpetrators. They were not given amnesty, so they were supposed to face investigations and trials, and they have not been pursued by the NPA. They've not been pursued by the ANC-led justice departments. And there's a whole scandal going on right now with the Craddock Four, who you should know about, and many people don't, to try and force an inquiry into why the Mbeki government and the Mbeki assembled NPA did not pursue people who did not get amnesty. But if you don't know about the TRC, how are you going to know why that story matters? And so, of course, that story is not very big in South Africa right now. It should be. There are also many people who are supposed to get financial compensation from the TRC, get that kind of economic justice, and they have not got it, and they are still fighting for it. But again, that doesn't make massive news because South Africans don't remember or don't know the significance of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And the fact that we don't know is stopping justice because it means that politicians don't feel pressure from the public to do the right thing and pursue those cases and make sure that those investigations happen. This is for me a perfect example of why we South Africans don't know South Africa well enough and need to aggressively learn up, like limber up with knowledge so we can better understand the true dynamics that create our daily lives.
And that is our national dialogue properly kicked off. And Dan Corder and I do not know each other. Full disclaimer: he put up this episode while I was recording my own stuff, and then I just added the reaction to it. But the point is that I'm going to leave you with the words of Usis Thandiswa Mazwai, Nizilibele Nizalwa Obani. That is a hit song that she did, and it speaks exactly to how South Africa has ended up in this predicament because we have allowed ourselves to forget. We have allowed the children to forget.